I am terrible at communication. Whenever I get a text or an email, I'll open it, I'll read what's inside, but then something distracts me. Whether it's a sound or a light or a voice out in the hallway, I'll get distracted. I get distracted so easily. I'll get distracted so much that I forget that I'm supposed to reply. This has gotten me into some problems in the past, whether it's a professor that needs an email back, whether it's a preaching engagement that I need to sign up for, or my mom. Like, all of these have been problematic because I am terrible at communication. This has also been problematic in other parts of my life. One of those parts is my prayer life. You see, Jesus calls us to a prayer life that doesn't just get distracted. He calls for a prayer life that is above what we're normally used to hearing. Jesus understood that prayer was essential when it came to his ministry. He knew that he needed to pray before, during, and after he would do kingdom work. He knew that as essential as breathing was, that prayer was just as necessary in his life. And maybe to some of you that sounds a little bit of an extreme of thinking that we need to be praying as much as we are breathing. But I think we've gotten into this wrong mindset of thinking that prayer is just something that we need to check off of a list of things to be done in order to be considered a Christian. You see, Jesus thought about prayer a little bit differently. He thought of it as the source of his life. Jesus knew that it was essential for his life, for his ministry. It was essential for him to pray. He would even fast from sleep in order to pray. He would give up the rest that sleep provided, the nourishment and the life-giving rest, in order to be in communication with his Father. Luke 6 puts it this way: in these days he went out to the mountain to pray, and all through the night he continued in prayer to God. Matthew 14 has a story about Jesus feeding 5,000 people and then going off by himself to a mountain to pray. The first chapter of Mark tells a story of Jesus getting up early in the morning, even before the sun comes up, to pray. He goes to a desolate place by himself to pray. Jesus even gives an insight into his own life. Whenever Jesus is asked what his prayer life is like, he gives us a couple of practical things for us to know about prayer. The first thing is this, that we need to clear our minds of any distractions, to clear our thoughts and where we are of any distractions. He teaches us to go into a room, to lock the door, and then communicate, talk with the Father. This gets us out of distractions. This takes away any distraction that we might have. The second thing he says is that we need to make sure that our prayers aren't just some rambles, that our prayers are more than just a run-on sentence of wants and asking for things. Jesus says that we should keep our prayers to what our necessities are, that we need to pray like we actually mean it. And then he gives us an example of how to pray. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we also have forgiven our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. You see, at the very center of this Jesus prayer, at the very core of it, are two things. One, that all glory goes to the Father in all situations. That his kingdom will be the one that's promoted. Not our own, not anyone in this world, but his, the Father's kingdom. The second thing is this, is that Jesus prays for his necessities. Jesus prays that the Lord would provide the daily bread. That rather than just going off on a list of wants and things that would make us happy, Jesus understands that we need to pray for our necessities. above everything else. One more thing about Jesus' prayer life. Jesus understood that it was necessary to pray for others. This is one of the reasons he's called the high priest, the one who intercedes on our behalf. He not only interceded for people that were around him on earth, but he also continues to intercede for us. Jesus prayed for strength for those around him. When his disciples were feeling low, Jesus prayed that their strength would be regained, that the Spirit would enter them. Jesus prayed that they would keep awake, that they would continue to be readily available to relationship. Today in the prayer room, we ask that you come here. There will be some bowls laid out throughout the room. And in those bowls will be different note cards with different places in Lincoln, Illinois. We ask that you would come in here, take a note card, and then pray over that note card. And after spending a certain amount of time on those note cards, we ask that you go out and you take those note cards with you, and that throughout this next week, as we continue to dive deeper into the person of Jesus, that you would continue to pray for that specific place. In Matthew 10, Jesus has a story where he's calling his disciples to more. And he's calling his disciples to pray for those that are lost, those that are away from him. Matthew 10 says this, "And Jesus went throughout all the cities and villages, teaching in their synagogues and proclaiming the gospel of the kingdom, and healing every disease and every affliction. When he saw the crowds, he had compassion for them, because they were harassed and helpless, like sheep without a shepherd. And then he said to his disciples, 'The harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. Therefore pray earnestly to the Lord of the harvest to send out laborers into the harvest.'" Jesus is calling us to pray for our town of Lincoln, Illinois. He's asking us to pray for the harvest and for the workers to go out into Lincoln to do it. We ask that you come into the prayer room to take these cards of different places in Lincoln, and that you would pray earnestly for them, that you would pray big and bold and powerful prayers in order to reignite this town into one of restoration. We ask that throughout this next week that you would continue to pray for this town, that you continue to pray over the vision as we seek to serve this town better. See, Jesus is calling us to pray. My prayer is that we would answer that call.